Sometimes, the people who make us feel the smallest live under the same roof. I'm Ellie. I'm not loud, and I've never been good at confrontation. Every day, I showed up early, hands in dough, swallowing words I wanted to say, watching others take credit for what I built. But silence doesn't mean weakness. And when the time came, I didn't need to shout to be heard. My work, my passion, and my quiet persistence spoke for me. This is my story. A woman dismissed by her own family, until the whole town had no choice but to see her. And maybe, somewhere in this journey, you'll see a piece of your own. Before we dive back in, let me know where you're watching from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoy real, heartfelt stories about quiet fighters who make their families, and the world, finally see their true worth, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next one. My name's Ellie Harper. I'm 29 years old. A true baker through and through, born into butter and dough. Literally, my family's owned a bakery for 3 generations right in the heart of Willow Creek, Ohio. It's the kind of small town where everybody knows your dog's name and folks still argue over who got the best cinnamon roll at their wedding. Sounds impressive, right? But me? I'm the one stuck kneading dough at 4 a.m. While all the ideas I've brought home from culinary school in Cincinnati, they get tossed out faster than yesterday's muffins. My dad, Tom, runs the place. He's a stickler for tradition. His motto? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, which, in plain English, means, don't you dare change a thing. Ellie, my Uncle Carl, Dad's older brother, handles the books. And let me tell you, if it's not written in black and white, he's not interested. Then there's my cousin Nate. He's the so-called face of Harper Bakery. Tall, charming, easy on the eyes, but the man couldn't bake a decent loaf to save his life. Doesn't matter though, the family fawns over him like he's the next coming of Betty Crocker. Mom, Susan, is the peacekeeper. Always whispering things like, don't stir the pot, honey, or, let Nate have his moment. She means well, I guess. And Aunt Linda, Carl's wife? She's technically in charge of marketing. But really she just gossips in the front with the regulars and calls it brand engagement. I remember the morning clear as day. Flour on my hands, apron still damp. I brought in a proposal for a new line of sourdoughs, infused with locally grown herbs. I had cost breakdowns, projections, the whole 9 yards. But Dad barely glanced at it before shaking his head. People here want the classics. Ellie, not your fancy bread. And Nate? He chuckled like he always does and said, stick to kneading. Ellie, let the big ideas be our thing. Linda chimed in with a smirk. No one cares about your college smarts. Sweetie. I swallowed hard, didn't argue, just nodded like I always do. But inside, I was boiling, thinking, fine, if no one wants to see what I can do, then maybe they won't see it, until it's too late. That night, I stayed late in the storage room. It's the only place in the bakery where I can breathe. I pulled out this old, beat-up notebook, pages full of ideas, recipes, wild sketches of a baking technique I've been developing in secret. That notebook is my little world. I started it when I was just a kid, sneaking into my grandpa's kitchen, copying down recipes from his dusty journals. He was the only one who ever looked at me like I might actually do something special. While I was scribbling, Mia, the part-time cashier and, honestly, one of the few people who sees me, walked in. What's that? Some secret baking manifesto? She asked. I laughed and tucked it away. Just some ideas. She raised an eyebrow. Just promise I get first dibs when you go big. Mia doesn't ask too many questions. But the way she looks at me, like maybe I am onto something, it keeps me going. And just when I thought things couldn't get more insulting, we had this family meeting. Dad stood up all proud and said, we're launching a catering division for the Harvest Festival. Nate's in charge. I tried to speak up. I've got some ideas that would really fit the theme. Like the new sourdoughs. Linda cut me off with a chuckle. Your sourdough? Oh, honey, please. Nate grinned. Yeah, I don't think folks are lining up for Ellie's experimental bread. I didn't say another word. Just stood, grabbed my bag, and walked out. On the way out, my notebook slipped from my tote. It hit the floor quietly. Unnoticed. No one saw it. But that notebook? It carried the seed of something no one in that room could imagine. A seed that, one day, would grow roots they couldn't ignore. After that family meeting, I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't fight back. I just went about my usual routine, kneading dough before sunrise, listening to Nate ramble about brand identity and customer connection. But when everyone clocked out, I'd quietly slip away to a little community kitchen at the edge of town. Tiny place, bit rundown, but clean, and more importantly, it was mine, paid for with the few dollars I'd saved over the years. No one in my family knew about it. That's where the crazy project began. I was working on a new fermentation process, something that blended the traditional tricks my granddad used with the technical knowledge I picked up in culinary school. Sounds simple, but it took months to get it right. Temperature, moisture, resting time, it all had to click. But when it finally did, the bread came out perfect. Rich flavor, chewy texture, stayed fresh for days without preservatives. Nothing flashy, just honest, good bread. I started selling it under a small, secret label, Creek Crust. No fancy logo, no social media blitz, just hand-wrapped loaves in brown paper bags at the local farmer's market. I told people it came from an up-and-coming city chef testing the waters in small-town Ohio. Nobody suspected it was me. And the weird thing was, they loved it. People came back week after week. One cafe owner even messaged me, begging for a regular supply. I should have been thrilled, and I was, sort of. But it hurt, too, because suddenly, my bread had value, just not to the people I thought it would matter to the most. Back at the family bakery, things kept chugging along, but cracks were showing. Nate somehow took credit for a new inventory system I'd secretly built out, just so we'd stop double ordering flour every other week. Dad looked at him like he'd reinvented the wheel. "That's real leadership, son," he said. I just smiled and swallowed the sting. Then Linda pulled me aside one afternoon. "You'd do better with customers if you smiled more, maybe throw on some lipstick? You look tired." I almost told her, "If I wore what you wear, I'd have flour in places flour shouldn't be." One night, Mom caught me in the back pantry and whispered, "Sweetheart, I know you're smart, but sometimes men like Nate, they need to feel important. Let them have that." I gave her a soft smile. Not because I agreed, just because I was too tired to argue. What kept me going were the little wins in the dark. A new recipe that actually worked. A handwritten note from a stranger at the market that read, "Tastes just like Grandma's, or Mia. God bless her," leaving me a sticky note in the cash drawer that said, "Keep shining, even if no one sees it yet." I filed a provisional patent for my process, under a company name I made up in my kitchen at 2 a.m., Harper Innovations. Sounded fancy, felt scary, but it was mine, my name, on paper, somewhere. I wasn't out for revenge. Honestly, I just wanted to prove to myself that I mattered. But then one night, I overheard Carl and Linda in the office. "This loan's riding on the festival sales." Carl muttered, "If Nate screws it up." Linda cut him off. "Don't jinx it. Tom trusts him. If we let Ellie step in, people might think she's the one holding us together." I froze outside the door, gripping my notebook so tight the leather bent. That notebook had everything now: recipes, test results, market research, my damn patent, all the proof I'd ever need. And still, to them, I was invisible, a shadow in her own damn family. That night, I went back to the community kitchen. The oven was hot, lights dim, clock ticking loudly in the silence. I pulled the last loaf out, perfect rise, golden crust, the kind of bread that makes you stop and breathe it in before you even taste it. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Family meeting. Tomorrow 7 a.m. We're talking bakery future." I turned off the oven, washed my hands, stared down at the open notebook on the counter. Then slowly, I closed it, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel sad, just ready. That morning, I showed up on time. Hair tied back, apron still dusted in flour, same as always. The whole family was packed into the little office behind the bakery. The one where they always held these so-called family meetings. Except usually, I wasn't really part of the family part. Dad looked around like he was about to deliver some big, dramatic news. Ellie, starting next week, you'll be moved to inventory. We've had customer feedback. They prefer seeing Nate at the front. He's more approachable. Linda nodded, like she couldn't wait to chime in. This bakery's built on tradition. Honey, not experiments. I looked around. Mom stared at the floor. Carl jumped in like he was doing me a favor. We're a team, Ellie. Sometimes stepping back is what's best for the whole family. And Nate? He just sat there with that smug little half-smile, avoiding my eyes. He didn't need to say anything. He was already winning. I didn't make a scene. I just said, I understand. I'll respect your decision. And I'll step back from all of my contributions too. They didn't get it. Not a single one of them understood what I just pulled out from under them. That night was the Harvest Festival. The air had that crisp fall bite to it. Lights were strung up across the park. Kids ran around with cider and caramel apples. And in a quiet little corner, tucked under a tree near the food tents, stood a booth with hand-painted signage, Creek crust. Fresh sourdough loaves lined the table. Still warm, giving off that smell that makes people stop in their tracks. The booth drew a crowd. People sampled, bought, came back for more. Everyone assumed it was some hotshot chef from the city testing out a rustic concept. Then I stepped out from behind the booth. I'm Ellie Harper, I said, and I made this. There was a beat of stunned silence. People blinked, some whispered, a few grinned and nodded like, oh, that makes sense now. And my family? Standing just a few booths over? They froze. Dad's jaw fell open. Nate stammered, wait, how did you? Linda tried to fake a smile. Carl leaned in toward Dad, clearly freaking out about the loan. I could practically hear them whispering. Then came the baking contest. I submitted a loaf using my patented fermentation method, the one I'd spent months perfecting behind their backs. The judges tasted it, whispered to each other, took notes. Then, first place goes to Creek Crust for their innovative technique and outstanding flavor. I walked up, took the trophy, the $10 prize, and posed for photos for the regional food magazine. Reporters asked for interviews. I gave them what they wanted. Just enough. My grandfather inspired everything I do. I just wanted to honor his legacy, in my own way. I didn't mention the bakery. I didn't need to. Back at my booth, we sold out, completely. Meanwhile, the Harper Bakery booth didn't. Later that night, I got a message from the bank confirming the pre-orders. $50 in confirmed Creek crust sales. Payment processing. I let out a breath. Not a laugh. Not even a smile. Just this quiet sense of peace. Like I'd finally stepped into the light. My phone buzzed again. A missed call from Dad. His voicemail. Ellie, we need to talk. The bank's asking about the loan. Call me, please. I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted it. Then I looked around that little market booth, the one I built with my own hands. Out of scraps and savings, and thought, they don't get to define me anymore. And there's no going back. After the festival, I thought I'd feel relief. But honestly, things were just getting started. The Harper Bakery started to crack, and this time, it wasn't just in my heart. It was in black and white numbers. The festival didn't bring in enough to meet the loan's revenue requirements. Carl panicked. He called me 3 times that morning, flipping between guilt-tripping and demanding. This little side hustle of yours just threw the whole family into a mess. And Nate? His catering gig at the festival bombed. Customers complained the bread was dry, bland, basically inedible. One of them even asked, why didn't you just use Creek crust like everyone else? I wanted to laugh, but honestly, it stung a little. I never wanted the bakery to fail. I just wanted to be seen. Linda, of course, didn't waste time spinning her version of events. I overheard her at the farmer's market telling people, Ellie, she turned her back on the family. Went rogue, left us hanging. But this time, the town didn't buy it. One older customer shut her down right there. If that's betrayal, then I hope my grandkids betray me just like that. And Mom, she came to find me. Her eyes were red, voice soft like when I was little. Sweetheart, help your dad. Please, we're still a family. I didn't answer right away. Just said, come to my space tomorrow night. Not the bakery, my kitchen. The next evening, they showed up, all of them, standing in the middle of my little kitchen space, the one I'd turned into my test lab. Bakery, and mini office. On the table were a stack of documents, a copy of my notebook, and some very clear terms. I didn't sugarcoat it. The bakery's in trouble. You can't fix this alone. I'm willing to help, but not the old way. Carl frowned. You're charging us interest? I looked at him, calm but firm. Yes, a $20 loan, fair market interest, and if you want to use my recipes, you license them. They're patented under Harper Innovations. Creek crust is mine. Linda snapped. You're trying to profit off your own family? I exhaled slowly. No, I'm saving my family, on my terms. Dad was quiet for a while. Then he let out a heavy sigh. We leaned on Nate too much. You're the one with the real talent. Ellie, I was wrong. And of course, Linda switched her tone on a dime, like she always does. Oh, I always knew Ellie would do something amazing. I didn't respond. Honestly, I didn't need their approval anymore. Then Nate spoke, quietly. Will you teach me how to make the bread? I looked up. It wasn't an apology, but maybe it was a start. If you're serious, yeah, I'll teach you. Mom smiled gently, hope flickering in her eyes. And then I brought Mia in, because if anyone had earned a seat at that table, it was her. She dropped a printout on the table. Creek crust now holds 18% of the local baked goods market. And it's growing every week. I signed the papers. They did too. A proper contract. Clear cut. No wiggle room. When it was all done, I didn't say I was coming back to the bakery. I just said, I need a month to decide if I still want to be part of this. They left, and I stayed, standing there in the warm glow of that kitchen I built from scratch. No fireworks, no fanfare, just me, finally speaking on my own terms. On the way home, I walked past the bakery. The lights were off. The sign looked faded, worn. My phone buzzed. Mia. Coffee tomorrow? Me. Wouldn't miss it. I looked back one last time. No bitterness, no rage, just a new version of me, clear-eyed, steady, unshakable. And this time, they knew exactly what that meant. I didn't go back to the bakery right away. Instead, I threw myself into Harper Innovations, exactly the way I'd always dreamed. I hired 2 assistants, scaled up production, and after a few tasting sessions with local grocers, I landed a distribution deal with a regional supermarket chain. Creek crust hit the shelves. With branded packaging, real barcodes, and a little note on the back, born in Willow Creek. Baked with legacy. No big name reveal. If you knew, you knew. Back at the bakery, things slowly started leveling out. My dad, the same man who once told me to stick to kneading dough, was now experimenting with the very recipes I used to get laughed at for. Sales? They were climbing again. One day, he texted me, "Can we meet? All of us. Neutral ground. Not the bakery. Not your kitchen." I said yes. We met in a private room at Willow Creek's oldest diner. No ovens. No tension. Just people. For the first time, it actually felt like family, not a boardroom. Dad went first. We'd like to start a new division, Harper Artisan Breads. You'd run it. Full control. Profit sharing. Your way. I nodded. But this time, I had terms. My patent stays mine. All leadership roles based on skill, not family ties. And Creek crust stays independent. Carl looked defeated but didn't argue. We were stuck in the past. I can admit that. Linda, of course, jumped in all bright and supportive, pretending none of the last few months had happened. I didn't bother responding. Mom just reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. But what surprised me most was Nate. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Will you teach me? I know I've coasted, but I want to get better." I didn't feel anger anymore. Sure, but it's gonna be real work. No shortcuts. That whole meeting? It wasn't about approval anymore. It was about clarity. I wasn't asking for a seat at the table. I was building a new one. Afterward, I stopped by Mia's place. Told her everything. She laughed and said, "You know what? Watching you, I kinda want to go to culinary school now." I grinned. "Then go. I'll sponsor you." A few weeks later, she enrolled. I signed the check. As for me, I used part of my contest winnings to launch a community kitchen fund right here in Willow Creek. A place where kids could learn to bake, cook, or just have somewhere safe to show up and be heard. At the grand opening, one little girl tugged at my apron and asked, What if nobody believes in me? I bent down and told her the truth. Then you be the first. Just one person believing is enough. By the end of that month, I wasn't sure if we'd ever be a perfect family. Maybe we never were. But I knew one thing. I'd changed everything. Not with yelling, not with revenge, but with bread and persistence. 1 year later, Creek Crust wasn't just that mystery bread brand from the farmer's market anymore. Now, it had its own place on grocery store shelves, from Cincinnati all the way to Columbus. Harper Artisan Breads, the new division we built at the bakery, was holding its own too. Serving walk-ins and catering gigs across the region. And me? I wasn't hiding in a backroom anymore. I was leading meetings, teaching workshops, signing contracts with the very people who once laughed off my ideas. But if you ask me what I'm proudest of, it's that I kept my little rented kitchen. Never gave it up. Every week, I still show up to teach the kids at our community kitchen program. Not for show, not for the press, because I remember what it feels like when no one believes in you. And I won't let any kid go through that alone. Mia's now in her 3rd semester at culinary school. She's running her own food truck on weekends at local events. On the side of the truck, in bold letters, it says, "Mentored by Creek Crust's Ellie." At first, I was embarrassed. Now, I smile every time I see it. And Nate, I'll be honest, he's changed. Slowly, but it's real. He's not pretending to be the chosen heir anymore. He's learning from scratch, putting in the hours, asking for feedback, owning his mistakes. I haven't forgotten everything that happened, but I do respect the work he's doing now. Carl and Linda? Still themselves. A little quieter, a little less smug, or at least smart enough not to try it around me anymore. Dad? He's my business partner now, not my boss. Every week we sit down and go over sales. Swap ideas, sometimes argue, sure, but it's mutual now. We're rebuilding our father-daughter relationship from a place of respect, not control. And then, the next Harvest Festival rolled around. This time, I was invited to speak. As the guest of honor. I stood on that little stage, looking out over the crowd, people sipping cider, eating bread, watching their kids chase each other through the hay bales. And all I could think about was the version of me who stood behind that tiny booth a year ago. Hands shaking, heart pounding, hoping someone would finally see her. So I told them the truth. I told them about being overlooked, about the times I was laughed at, ignored, dismissed. I told them about crying while kneading dough in the middle of the night, thinking maybe they were right, that I wasn't enough. And then I held up my grandfather's notebook, now published as a hardcover book. The cover read, "To the one who dared to rewrite the recipe." People clapped, Mom wiped away tears, and I swear, somewhere, somehow, my grandfather was smiling. Later that week, I was back at the community kitchen. The kids were tossing flour at each other while shaping dough. One little girl tugged at my apron and asked, "Miss Ellie, what if I try really hard, but people still laugh at me?" I knelt down beside her and said, "Then you keep trying, because your worth, that's not something people give you. It's something you claim for yourself." The camera pans out the window. The small town of Willow Creek comes into view, peaceful, familiar, unchanged. But me? I changed everything. A voiceover closes it out. Worth isn't something handed to you. It's something you claim, with grit, with heart, with belief in who you are. Stand firm, and the world will see you. Ellie's story reminds us that true worth doesn't have to shout, but it should never stay buried in silence. Sometimes, the very people who are supposed to lift us up are the ones who hold us back. But if we stay steady, if we dare to speak up, even with nothing more than a loaf of bread and an unproven idea, we can rewrite our own legacy. As the old saying goes, cream always rises to the top. Justice may come slowly, but it never loses its way. If you've ever been overlooked, shut out of the conversation, or forced to choose between your peace and your pride, share your story. Drop a comment below, or tell us about a time you stood up for yourself in a world that wanted you quiet. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another story that stirs the heart and makes you think. Wishing you a peaceful day ahead, and if there's a storm, may you still find light, right where you are.